Hey everyone, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Avalaura Gaither, your life coach and intuitive consultant. And this is a fun conversation. Notice I said fun. That means I don't want anybody to take offense, even though it's going to be thought provoking for sure. This is a fun conversation with some of my Facebook friends. And, we'll talk about kind of how this got all started in the beginning. But before we do that, I just want to go ahead and have everybody introduce themselves. And, just really quickly, kind of like, what is your fascination with cults? And of course, those of you viewing would love to hear from you. Go ahead. We'll be taking your comments, your questions, your feedback. We are not experts in this field. Okay. Hence why this is a fun conversation. But I think all of us are fascinated in cults for one reason or another, like many of you who are watching. So we'll love to hear from you and definitely try to answer all of your questions. So all of that is encouraged. If you're watching on the replay, hey, y'all, go ahead and post your questions and comments as well. I will certainly be going back and talking to you as well. So yeah, let's get started. Miss Deirdre, tell us a little bit who you are and what's your fascination with cults?
Hi, my name is Dr. Deidre Sorrell. I'm a licensed professional counselor and school psychologist. I'm owner of Synergy Wellness Therapeutic Services. And the thing with cults is throughout my life, I've heard about different cults, like, for example, the Manson family and Heaven's Gate, the Dravidian cult, other cults like Nexium. I've heard about this growing up. And when I went into the field of mental health, I always wondered what would make people want to join a cult? What is the pull? And what is the thing that keeps people in cults? I think that cults are a slippery slope and that people can unfortunately fall into them even to this day. So I'm so glad to be included in this discussion, and I hope everyone learns from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Miss Ebony.
Hi, I am
doctors.
Dr.
I just realized I got doctors on one side and the lay people.
Listen, nothing but Black excellence on this call today. I am Dr. Ebony Gray, and my fascination with cults began with the People's Temple, right? Led by Jim Jones. Remember all the kids, all the people drinking whatever he gave them and just dying all of a sudden. Yeah. I was essentially fascinated by that part. Like, why would you do that? Why would you drink the Kool-Aid? So from there, of course, remember the Branch Davidians? Remember that whole thing where they had to go to the compound and get the people? And I've been fascinated. I read books, I watch the documentaries just to learn, to see what draws people into the cults, where they feel like, number one, they can't escape. Number two, where they would rather die right first. And number three, how can we possibly raise awareness where you could tell a person, look, phone a friend, phone your counselor, phone somebody so you can get out of this situation. You don't have to stay there. So that's been my fascination.
Love it. And last but not least, pronounce your name for me.
Selenia.
Selenia. That's so musical. It's beautiful. So tell us about you and what is your fascination with cults?
So hello, everyone, and thanks for including me in this conversation. I'm a certified energy healer and spiritual life coach and owner of the Radiant Sessions. And my fascination, like they said, I heard about all those cults growing up, but really it wasn't until a few years ago where I learned that they actually created a phrase that called high demand religion, because they operate very much like cults. But because of those things that we've heard and how they've been stigmatized, they created this other phrase to really open up the discussion and to teach people just how dangerous it is, even if you're not doing a pact to go on with the Lord at midnight on New Year's Eve or something like that.
So what is high what?
High demand religion.
Interesting. Okay, we can definitely talk more about that. So for me, and we're all right in a similar field, right? So my major was psychology, undergrad, in graduate school, social work. And so I think anybody who's in the healing profession, and healing looks a lot of different ways, right? Anybody in the healing profession, we know how important it is to really understand people, right? And understand mindset and understand, our emotions and how it works and how it does drive us to do certain things and how it doesn't drive us to do other things, right? And I've always been fascinated with human development. Why do people do the things that they do? So where other people are kind of judging and like, that's stupid, I would never do that. I'm looking at, well, how did that happen? What was going on at this person that was okay, right? Or that was normal for them, right? So I'm always trying to get to the root, like unravel, like there had to be something there for that to happen. And so my fascination with cults, like many of you, right, came from that in understanding human beings and human nature and why we do the things that we do and how we find ourselves in these situations that we don't know how to get out of, and how there's extremes of it, but then there's also like those everyday situations that really kind of mirror the extremes. And so even when people are kind of talking about, oh, I would never do that, well, how many of you are in a toxic relationships for 3 years and you haven't gotten out? Is no good. You can leave at any time and you're still there, and you find yourself making excuses. Well, he did this, and well, this happened. And I'm not talking about necessarily a domestic violence situation, right? I'm just talking about relationships that are not good for you, right? So how many of you find yourselves in the same job that is not good for you, and you don't leave, and you can leave and you choose not to for whatever reasons? And it might be, I need the money, I need this, and I need that. But a lot of us choose to stay in particular situations that are not healthy for us for a variety of reasons. And I think cults are just sort of like the extreme of that, but it can really kind of happen to any of us in any different types of way. So let me tell you how this got started. So for those of you following me on Facebook, you were there, you already know. I talk about everything that's going on that I'm looking at on Netflix or streaming or whatever, give you all suggestions. Some of you watch, some of you don't. Well, I just happened to catch the Escaping Twin Flame documentary. So did you all watch that?
Yes, I loved it. I watched it all the way to the end.
All the way to the end, right? Okay, so I started watching that and I was appalled. I was disgusted. Now, mind you, like you all, I've watched all of these documentaries, but I was disgusted because they are coaches. And I was like, OMG, they're coaches and they're using this spirituality stuff, this new age, because people think twin flames, they invented it. They didn't invent that. We've been talking about twin flames for years. They just exploited it. But I was really pissed at how these coaches that, people trusted and they wanted to become, I don't know what they're called, twin flame coaches, life coaches, soulmate coaches. I don't know. All kinds of coaches now. Here a coach, there a coach, everywhere coach. But that really upset me and how they really took advantage of these people. And it's really giving coaching a bad rep because it's like the wild, wild west now. Like everybody is just doing any old thing. And because the coaching industry is not regulated, it's okay. And so that's how this got started for me. So I'm going to show y'all a quick, let me see. I'm going to try to do it. A quick clip. See if I can do this. I'm putting on my production hat today.
In every way, when you're incarnated on this planet, it wouldn't happen any other way.
Let me go.
So the fact is that whether your twin flame has a significant age difference or not much of a significant age difference at all, like Jeff and I, your twin flame is always going to be perfect for you in every way when you're incarnated on this planet. It wouldn't happen any other way. So the fact is that...
Okay. So now let's think about this. Now it was what, 8? Was it 8 episodes?
Yes.
Okay, so this is one minor clip, right? And this isn't even the half of what they were doing. But just think about what they just said. So you're going to meet somebody and they're going to be perfect for you in every way and you're going to live happily ever after. I mean, are they not selling a Disney movie?
Yeah, no matter the age gap.
No matter
the age what people want if you're inside different Facebook groups or on Facebook. I want you to do a search right now on Facebook. How many people? How can I be in a relationship? Where do I find someone? Where do I find my person? How many people are logged into Tinder, Bumble, Match? a lot of people are looking for love and they want to find that perfect person and they want to believe that perfect person or their soulmate is out there. So that's not that far-fetched. It's like that sense of love and belonging that people long for.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, reality TV has kind of set us up as well, because we watch these shows, and even though we know that it's a reality show, it still says reality. So if we watch, what are the names of the shows? These dating shows where you don't see the person and you're talking.
I watch them all.
Behind the
Love is
wall.
Blind, Ready
Love
for
is
Love.
All of those shows. And then, The Bachelor, The Bachelorette. And then we have this fantasy that these people have these beautiful relationships after the show is over. And we really don't know if they do. But that sets us up to thinking that we don't have to do the work to get to know someone, to get into a loving and committed relationship.
Yeah. From relationship goals and how, even with Will and Jada, everybody feels like, oh my God, they were our goals. And now, we've taken them off a pedestal, and they're like, we never asked you to put us on a pedestal. We never said. But then even with the fact that spirituality is having like an emergence on the internet, because it's always been there. It's nothing new. Like it's as old as time. But because people are now being more spiritually awakened in a way, it's like, and then, with the woman, where she kind of gives him credence because she's the one doing the meditations, and it feels like this spiritual thing. So they must have something that I don't have. They must know something that I don't know and I can't have access to because I haven't found it yet. And they did.
And what's that? The charismatic leadership. That's the first term for a cult, right? They're charismatic. And think about the religion aspect of it. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up in a Christian, traditionally Southern Baptist church, you were taught you need to grow up, you need to get married. So you have to find your husband. You're supposed to be a virgin, right? Until you find that husband. And family was pushed. When are you getting married? When are you going to have your child? They even try and connect you sometimes in certain churches where they say, okay, you're going to be with this person when you become of age. So how much of that carries over into this, where a person's like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be a whole woman or a whole person unless I find love.
Yeah. And I think, and this is one of the things about cults that I found fascinating, right? Is that you take something like love that everybody wants. Some people are gonna go, online. I met a lot of great people online, right? Some people are gonna go out and about to find somebody. Some people are gonna get matched, whether they hire a matchmaker or through a friend or family or something like that. But ultimately, they take something, and this is in the church as well, that people want, that people desire, that people are desperate for, that people will do anything for, and then they exploit it. Yeah. And that's what's so interesting. And, the thing that I think about, especially like when I looked at this documentary, when I think about how cults are, is that they start off so great. Right? It's like the fairy tale. It starts off like, oh, this is wonderful. Oh, you're giving me everything that I wanted, everything that I needed, everything that I prayed for, I manifested, right? This is it. And then it's like, the analogy with the frog, like if you just took a frog and put the frog in boiling water, it's going to hop out and leave, right? But if you put a frog in the water and it's cool and it's, and then it gradually just kind of heats up, right? The frog is there chilling out like, okay, it's getting a little hot, but okay. And it just gets hotter and hotter and hotter until now the dang thing is boiled up to the max and can't get out. And that's what these cults do. So that charismatic leadership, so they find something that people really want. They make it sexy and amazing and alluring and all the bells and whistles and all the things that you want. And then they get you and they just escalate until there, bam, there you are, and you can't even get out.
It's classic love bombing.
And manipulation, right? That's another part of the definition, right? Like you manipulate, you make me feel loved and wanted and whole, a sense of belonging. Then you flip on me. If you leave me, now you're not part of this community anymore. If you leave, now you won't get this love anymore, which is what you desire, what you need. And they find the weaknesses because they isolate the people too. So none of the people have their support system. So remember, one woman was separated from her twin sister. Imagine being separated from your twin sister and not being able to call, because that person would talk you off the ledge, tell you, come on, I'm coming to get you, pack your stuff up. You're about
and they
to
never
leave.
gave up on her either.
They're still looking.
They're still
trying to communicate.
Yep.
But they're isolated. Told, don't talk to those people because they don't want the best for you. They don't love you.
They don't understand.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that, and that's the problem with these organizations. They do this splitting where, they, like you said, they want to isolate you from your friends and from your family. I think on one hand, people who are looking for that sense of community are drawn to these cults or don't really see the red flags. But those who do have some sort of family or friends in their lives, the organization is going to try to do that splitting and say, well, you know what, this friend of yours, I saw something in them that is evil or something that isn't right. And I think that you need to gravitate toward us and kind of leave that person behind so that they can isolate that person and then manipulate them.
Yeah. You said something key, like you said, they don't see the red flags. I almost feel like people do see the red flags, right? Because, and you see them say it like afterwards, like, well, I did notice this. They see the red flags, but the community and the support and everything that they think they're getting, they feel like it's worth it. Right. So they overlook the red flags because what they're getting is more important than the red flags that they see. And I think the other things that happens too is they override their own intuition and their own knowingness for this charismatic leader. So I'm an educated person, all the things that I know, but you know what? Maybe I don't know here. They know more than me. So I'm going to go lend to them as opposed to my own understanding of things.
Right.
And I desire.
And don't they target a certain demographic, like a person that's been sexually assaulted, a person that's experienced domestic violence, a person that's been abused or maybe abandoned as a child? Come here, come into my community. Let me love you. Let me give you that support. So when they are being abused, in many ways, that's what they're used to, right? Like, I'm used to being controlled. I'm used to being abused. I'm used to feeling isolated and like this. So basically, I deserve it. I don't deserve any better.
If you think of the Manson cult, that's exactly who he's kind of was. He tried to gravitate, or people that gravitated to him were young people who were runaways, people who didn't quite, they wanted to kind of rebel from their families.
They didn't fit
in. These were kids who were actually came from middle class to upper class families, but Manson had them doing all types of crimes, from theft to then mass murder, which, and the fascinating thing about him was that he never lifted a finger, but he got all of these young people to do this, so yes, these were people who were isolated from their families and, probably had experienced some sort of abuse or something, who knows?
Yeah. I watched a docuseries on Hulu called Stolen Youth, and a father of a student started a sex cult with her friends at a college, Sarah Lawrence College in New York. And he started by showing up at their house, and he's cooking, and he's, and being the cool guy. And then he starts singling them out and talking to them and finding out their weaknesses and affirming them and saying, oh, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to love you. Calling their parents and saying, you weren't a good parent to them because this happened to them when they were 7, and I'm going to protect them now.
Wow.
To the point that he got them to move off campus in a small apartment with him. It's like 7 students in his apartment. And before he started introducing the sex, he is building them up. He has them dressing better, working out, giving them affirmations, like creating almost like a military kind of protocol for them every single day. And they're like, oh, I feel more confident. And he's teaching me how to be a man. He's teaching me how to be a woman. And then he's throwing out there, oh, don't you find them attractive? oh, you should touch her like this, and starts manipulating them. But by that point, even though their friends are like, this is weird. Like, why would they not want to be on campus? Why would they be hanging out with her dad? But they're in this little bubble. Yeah. And because they feel like, oh, he cared. Like, they all thought he was weird at first too. And then they had that one conversation where he's just saying all the right things that they've been wanting to hear from someone, and telling them, no, you're not confused. You're great. You're this. And once he knew, once they took the hook, they took the bait, he had it. And then it was, oh, you don't have to go home for the summer. You can come stay with me in the city. It's okay. Nope. And the parents are like, I wasn't concerned, because it's like, well, at least they don't have to pay for rent.
Wow.
Yeah, my child is safe, right?
Yeah.
My child is safe.
Of their friends.
They're in college, so there's that weird time where they're an adult, but they're really not an adult.
They're really not.
So
you said they thought he was weird at first.
Yeah, all of them thought, it was like, why is he always hanging around?
Intuition.
Initially
they ignored it. Right. Initially, right.
Yeah. And you see that in this documentary. Let me read Kalima's statement. She says that leadership with all the charm is often narcissism all dressed up.
Yes.
Yeah. So, when I'm watching some of these, I wonder how many of these, movements sort of start off like the leader has this intention of having a cult, even though they might not call it that, right? If that is their intention to manipulate, or if sometimes it evolves into that. Have you all seen the differences in that?
Well, first, I would like to speak up for the coaches, right? I'm a certified coach from the International Coach Federation, and we do not lead cults, right? We're here to do transformational leadership to help change people, right? But I do think it is narcissistic where the person is like, how can I get people to lead? I've seen it a lot in dating groups where a person gets a big head. I can put people together. I'm the leader. I'm the person that everyone's coming to. Typically, it's a male figure. Typically, it's the person that draws all the women to them. All the women love them. And guess who's the person getting all the benefits? They're getting all the love, all the support, most times financial rewards also from the women, because the women pay for the speed dating. Maybe you can coach me and tell me what I'm supposed to do. So maybe somewhere they say, okay, there's some goodness in their heart where they are trying to help these women. But I can't think of a time where it hasn't ended up where the women have been manipulated, isolated, or maybe felt betrayed, felt used in some type of way from those type of situations.
And I'm going to come back to that because I want to talk about the difference between a cult and then a cult following, right? So I'm going to come back to that. But I saw that. So 2 recent documentaries that are right now. And I'm going to add that one to the list, the Hulu one. But there's one called Love is One on Max. And it's about a woman who she called herself Mother God. Ding, ding, ding. Red flag right there.
That's a red flag right there.
Right there. And what's interesting is that she was a charismatic person. She just started off making videos online. Right. She just wanted to spread her message. It was Mother God and it was like Father God. And she was like with this older man and he was Father God. And apparently she had a lot of Father Gods throughout this whole thing, but he was the first. And she really, somebody introduced her to, really like getting online, and she just, let me spread my message. And she started off kind of doing like energy healing and stuff like that, like just really simple. And then she was like, hey, you know what? You all should join us. And people started coming to where she lived. It was like, you know what? Just come. And so again, that community. And so they just started building community and they were just like partying, drinking, smoking, you know what? Like who doesn't want to do that? Just, in this cabin, just living their best life, having a good time. And then all of a sudden it kind of evolved into, she had a whole sales force that she's not paying. So now they are selling her products and stuff online. She's making all the money. They're not getting money. They got a place to stay. but she's making all the money, and they're literally catering to her will. People cleaning the house, doing all the chores. And I don't think that when she started out, now I think this was different because it was a woman leader as well. I don't think that when she started out, she thought of it as a cult, or she had, gone into it that way. She really just wanted to spread her message. And even when I watched, Escaping Twin Flames, I don't know if they started out with that. I think they evolved when they saw how much power they had, and how they could tell people anything and they would do it. And so now they said, hold up.
I think they started, I think something about them, they started that way, and now they're still a cult, right? But they changed to a religious organization. And people are still following them, but I think they started with that.
The reason I say that, when they first started, they were broke, right? They didn't have no money. It seemed like the woman, and I don't even know her name, was a little more active.
Yeah,
you could see kind of going down the line, the dude like really took over, and he was comparing himself to Jesus and all of this stuff. Like at first, it was just about love and the spirituality. Then it really became more like churchy, and you could see like the evolution over time. And then at first it was heterosexual. Now, oh no, your twin flame is here, and you know what? Maybe your twin flame is a woman or another woman, or because it was all women, right? So maybe your twin flame is another woman, and maybe you're the feminine and she's the masculine. So they kept like changing things over time, because it was like, oh, this ain't working. We don't have any men up in here. How they gonna find their twin flame up in here? So now we're gonna make twin flames men and women, and we're gonna make these women masculine women.
Wow.
Who aren't masculine.
Think about it from a spiritual perspective. This is someone who may have a touch of narcissism, right?
Oh, you think
from the beginning, right? But because we all have a little bit of narcissism in them, but they may have a little more than the average person. But success and power can be a drug for someone like that. And then spiritually, something else seeps in, whatever you want to call it. You can call it the devil. You can call it whatever you call it based on your spiritual system. But something seeped in there to really elevate that narcissism and make them manipulate people to the point of having slaves. You just said they had slaves. People doing all the cleaning. What is that? That's slavery, right? And then they
were forcing them to change their sexuality.
Yes,
that's what was crazy.
Telling them to stalk people, like your twin flame is this person. You need to go to jail. Do what you need to do. We don't care about restraining orders. That was strange. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the danger of any one person positioning themselves as the guru over your own life, over your choices, that I know what's best for you. I have access to divine knowledge that you don't have, and so you have to listen to me.
Right. They're putting themselves up there with God. And that is when it becomes a problem, because serial killers think they're God, right? They think, I'm making the world better by killing off these people that I deem as, evil. That's how they think. So this is the same way. It's very scary.
Yeah.
It's very scary. And I'm gonna tell you something. I'm an open, free person. So I can almost vibe with anything, right? It may not be my cup of tea, but one thing my clients can always tell you, listen, I want what's best for you. So if this is what you want for yourself, I'm gonna help you to get that. It doesn't have to be something that I want or care about. But when somebody starts saying that they God or they look like Jesus, I'm out. Like I am out. That's a level of narcissism I can't contend with.
Don't all of you have a level of cutoff, right? Like if you do therapeutic services, maybe there's a point where you cut off a client, where you say, okay, you know what? I've done everything that I can do for you. It's time for us to transition. Typically you do that in your world. Whereas in this world, it's like a lifelong commitment, like a blood relationship.
Yeah. You can't leave, or you're shunned, or something may happen to you or your family. But there is no leaving and saying, okay, this isn't working for me. Peace, y'all. Bye.
That's true. Yeah. That's actually a really good point. We have some great comments here. So Mark says he thinks that that cults can evolve into it. He also said that there was nothing charismatic about Mother God, but that was for you, not for her followers, obviously, because they were with her to the end. Shakanis, she said, she's sliding in. Okay. She said it came from the need for them to have more proof than that first couple. They needed more couples. Yeah. Now that's interesting, right? So how many of these movements, you start off, so what she's talking about is they had one couple who were quote unquote twin flame couple that was successful, even though they actually weren't, but that's a whole nother story. But they looked like they were successful. They presented as successful. They could not get these other couples, and everybody was joining based on them. Like, oh, she found love. They found love. Where's mine? And they weren't getting it. So they had to keep making stuff up for them to try to find it. Like you said, they were telling people, oh, this is your twin flame over here. So you need to go and stalk him and, do all of this stuff. The other woman, I can't remember. I don't remember anybody's names. But she was with a man who was much older than her, who was in prison at the time. Remember that? And they convinced her that that was her twin flame. And when he came out, again, she tried to make it work, even though it was a really dysfunctional relationship. And so they weren't having much luck actually having these twin flame couples. They're a whole twin flame university and all of this stuff, and there's no twin flame couples. Mm-hmm. So then they start saying, well, we're going to match you all together. We got a special message to tell you this is who your twin flame is. And one woman is the masculine and one woman is the feminine. Mm-hmm. And so, again, kind of like you said, Ebony, instead of saying, you know what, this ain't working, or your twin flame is not here, or we can't guarantee that you will find your twin flame, but we can give you at least the resources, so you can be your best person, right? And be ready for this person. They gave all of these promises that they could never commit to, right? And then started making things up to try to make it seem like that they were fulfilling their promises.
You know what? And you just brought up something very important, and that is informed consent, right? And with cults, you don't have informed consent. You just said that they never said, well, okay, you're here. Your goal is to find your twin flame, but based on your informed consent form we put on here, you may not, but you have learned this, that, and the third. And that right there is the problem, because with these cults, you don't know what you're getting. Things are changing all the time. Yeah. And you think you're getting one thing, but it's something totally different.
Yeah. And I love what Dr. Deidre just said, right? Because there's no one formula to find love. So perhaps an approach they could have taken is, we're going to teach you about healthy relationships. Mm-hmm. We're going to teach you, how to go out there and pursue your mate. Let's work on you. So I'm not promising that you're going to find your love, but I'm promising you that I'm going to give you the tools so that you can evolve and eventually get into a healthy, happy relationship. But what they promised up front, you're going to find your twin flame. And then remember, that couple ended up being a DV situation. So now you have this woman in an abusive situation that feels like she can't leave because she's the face of the organization. She can't go anywhere. She's trapped in an unsafe situation, and other people are looking at them as the model. And I'm certain other people witnessed, because normally abuser they're going to do something in front of someone. So I'm certain other couples probably witnessed the toxic relationship, and then they had to play along.
And to your point, I remember one of the things that the woman in the couple said, and she eventually became a coach. And so one of the things that they did, of course, right, they sold their materials. So you had to buy their materials so you could be a coach. And these people this is what I find fascinating. These people were spending money buying their materials and working for them for free. Mm-hmm. So they're building their website, they're doing their marketing, their videos, their SEO, and they're buying all of their stuff so they can do what they're doing, and no proof of concept whatsoever. But one of the things I remember her saying is that relationship really ended up becoming abusive because now the man had all this power, right? Because they would say things like, oh, anytime he wants sex, you got to have sex with him, right? This is your twin flame, anytime X, Y, and Z. And so, of course, he started to take advantage of that. Well, we got to be in this relationship. You're my twin flame, so you should be doing this for me. And then, like you said, Ebony, she felt trapped. So now she feels like she has to do it. Everybody's looking to them. Now she's also a coach, and now she's teaching this stuff. She can't get out of this relationship and say it didn't work. So now it's not just they're not the model anymore, but everything that I'm teaching, because she became complicit, right, in a lot of what was happening in the abuse. So now they're empowering people who are being abused to abuse others.
And I just want to note, because if we're listening to what we're saying, this is where I come in and my fascination with it. Doesn't that sound a lot like a lot of churches?
Correct.
Correct. A lot of denominations, because it's real easy to look at these things and be like, oh, I would never, I don't understand how they couldn't see. But like the charismatic leader, the way that they mobilize the church to work for the church for free and tell you you're serving the Lord, and like all of these things, and I think it's because culturally, whether Black, white, or whatever, kids don't have agency. Boundaries are non-existent. And so, like Dr. Deirdre said, like that informed consent, we weren't taught that. You're taught to, your families in a lot of ways can operate like cults.
Absolutely.
So then you get out what I tell you, right? You better do what I say.
You're looking to create the same dynamic that you probably hated it, but you don't know, you're reenacting your trauma.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think when we teach our kids that they can't ask questions and they don't have a voice, that is the thing that sets them up for cults.
And repeating that cycle of abuse. Yeah. Like I can say, look, don't put your hands up, but how many of us have been in abusive homes, have witnessed abuse? The grandfathers abused the grandmother, then the mother, father in abusive relationship. And then that cycle of abuse, it becomes a norm, right? Yeah. I don't know any different. This is what I grew up around. And a lot of times when I've dealt with survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence, the reality is I don't want to tell anybody about it. A lot of people in DV type situations will say, I'm not ready to leave. Automatically on the outside looking in, you shouldn't have to deal with that. You need to leave. Most times it will say, I'm not ready to leave. I love this person. I care about this person. This is the father of my children or the mother of my children. This is my husband. This is my wife. They don't want to leave. That person love bombs them, buys them gifts, showers them with praise. I love you so much. Please don't leave. What am I going to do with it? I'll die without you. So they feel trapped. How many people have been stuck in that cycle? And not just this generation, but past.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if we really want to talk about it, come on, our ancestors were really in that cycle.
Yes.
So, I mean,
it's not surprising to me that people get caught up in the cult because, again, they feel safe. They feel like that sense of belonging. When people say, I would never, how could they not? That's all they know. They just want to feel loved and accepted.
And the role of capitalism, because even how all these people, it's like you're doing all this labor and you're not receiving the financial reward of it. And so even if at any point, just like in a DV situation, you do want to leave, how can I?
Yeah.
Everything no financial means, money. Right? You're stuck. Right. Where are you supposed to live, right? And maintain that quality of life. How are you supposed to eat? What are you going to do about your children, right? Because your children have to eat, have to be clothed. You have no place to go because you don't have not $1 in your bank account.
Yeah. I think what's interesting, there's so many points. I think what's really interesting, and I think that we all get into this, right, is we have a certain point where we feel like we're so invested that even if it's not working out, I have to see it through because I have done too much, right? And you see this in relationships. We've been together 20 years. I can't leave now. We've been together too long, right? I've been in this
die
job
together, right? Look, we're gonna
right.
die.
You know, I've been in this job for 10 years. I gotta stay now. Like I gotta get my benefits, right? So I've invested too much time into this for it not to be what I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah.
So I gotta stick it out. I gotta find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting. So, you know, so when I asked the question on Facebook, so, you know, after this, I asked the question, well, what are some Black cults? Right? Or what, you know, what have you found to be Black cults? And I can't tell you the number of people that said the church. And some people mentioned a specific church, and a lot of people just said the Black church. And I'm gonna talk about what a cult is, the actual definition of a cult. But what I do think is interesting about the church and what we've been talking about, right, is how people are conditioned in a sense to override their own intuition and to look towards, you know, this pastor, this minister, because his word, he knows more than me. That is a programming, right, that we get in the church, and the lack of boundaries, right? And so, just like you said, there's a lot of things that'll fly in the church that if we were on the street, we would never accept that. But because it's happening in the church, oh, this is sister so-and-so, and this is brother so-and-so, it's actually okay. And so you don't have those boundaries. And you do have people I've seen, you know, working for the Lord, or, you know, severely discounted or doing everything for them. And so they're making all of this money. Meanwhile, your actual talents, right, are just being abused, right? And you're not getting paid. And so when somebody is programmed in this way, it's very easy for them to leave that and to go into a similar situation because they've already been programmed. Whether that's the church or whether that is their home, like some of you said, because yes, some of our families certainly can operate like a cult. I actually have had clients. One of the things that we're working on is codependency. Their families acted like cults. So that programming, how much of that plays into someone finding themselves in a situation like this because, you know, they were predisposed.
I think critical thinking is so important, and especially when you're considering a church, because I'm a member of a church. I am a Christian. It took me a while to find a church that I felt comfortable in, but I really had to be very careful to make sure that it wasn't a church where the pastor was worshiped like a celebrity or like the pastor was God, but that God was always seen as the head of the church. And even though I have done volunteer work in the church, I do what comes naturally to me, what I'm comfortable doing in terms of giving financially. I do what I'm comfortable doing. So it's not a situation where I feel pressured to give a certain amount, because churches that require a certain amount, or they take your tax forms, I've heard of that happening.
Yes,
that's something that that doesn't sit right with me personally. It may sit right with other people, or churches that make you do certain tasks or certain work in the church where you're having to neglect your own family. Those are the things that I really look out for when I am determining a church that's right for me. But there are some churches that can be very abusive. And I think that people, Christians especially, need to be very careful and pray about it. Use their discernment.
Yeah. You got to know what to look for.
Not somebody else's discernment.
Yes. Really, I mean, you have to pray about it, and you have to go with how you feel. How do you feel when you're at the church? Are there levels in the church where it's like, okay, well, I can't even talk to the pastor unless I give a certain amount of money, or unless I do certain tasks, or I'm in this certain clique or in crowd. Come on, you know that's not right.
Or they tell you you won't be blessed if you're not giving this, if you're not doing this, if you're not here when you're being voluntold to do things. And it's sad, because it's like, I grew up in churches like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And many of people who might be listening to this and be like, oh, that's not, they find themselves in churches like that because that is what they grew up in. That's all they know.
Right.
And until something like this maybe starts asking questions. And if you start to ask questions and those people are telling you that you are not allowed to ask questions, don't question God, don't question me. Or you're saying, I think God is telling me this. And the leader is saying, I didn't hear God, so you couldn't have heard God. Those are red flags.
Yeah, because the disciples had questions, right? So that's why
I grew up in Philly, right? The Nation of Islam. So I grew up in Philly with the Nation of Islam, and that was a whole different world, right? Where a lot of people were very humble. You were taught take care of your family. They had their own school, Sister Clara Muhammad's school. So I saw that part. Then I grew up in the Baptist church where, yes, I thought about it at one point in my life. We were at church every day of the week. Choir rehearsal, I was an usher, and this was as a child. Choir rehearsal, I was an usher, youth minister, Bible study. We were at church every single day. I will say, I don't think most people know the pastor typically doesn't make a salary. Typically, you have the pastor's offering for your average church. So some pastors are working for free, especially if you're not, giving. But at the same time, I have been to those mega churches where the pastors lock the door and you can't leave until 10 people come up with $1,000 or they have a certain amount. So I've seen both sides. I've seen where you do give everything, right? I've seen Jehovah's Witness side where if your family isn't a Jehovah's Witness, essentially you can't talk to them or communicate with them. I have seen that verbatim. What's it called? The Israelites. So all of this was in Philly. The 5%ers, the Israelites, total isolation, charismatic leaders. They, kind of broke off from mainstream religions and then become fanatics about it. Like you need to give everything to this specific denomination or to this specific organization. And these are strong leaders, right? These are people you say, oh, they're intelligent or they're confident. So I am curious, like what draws them to that, to the point where they're like, this is what I'm doing. I'm going hard. I'm an Israelite for life.
We want to be a part of something.
I want to just really quickly just say what the definition of a cult actually is, right? Because we can call everything a cult. It's a system of religious veneration and devotion directed towards a particular figure or object, a relatively small group of people having religious beliefs or practices regarded by others as strange or sinister. I think we talked about the strange ones. A misplaced or excessive admiration for a particular person or thing. So like a cult personality surrounding the leaders. What do you all think of that? So, because one of the questions that I asked, right, is like, what do you consider a cult? And, and some of us started talking about, right, churches and religious institutions. And some of us started also talking about people, right? Like, Beyonce, the Beehive is a cult, and like, Apple has a cult following and Starbucks has a cult following, right? So, that's what an actual cult is. So what do you think is the difference between like a cult and actual cult following, where you might have a charismatic leader or thing, right, that people do choose to follow?
Did you watch that movie about Beyonce? Or no, they say that could or could not have been about Beyonce.
Yeah.
That pretty much sums it up, where I don't think Beyonce is sitting here telling her fans to do these things, to spend $10,000 on tickets and not pay your bills, or to take people out, right? Because the girl was taking people out for Beyonce. But people love them so much. Beyonce, Rihanna, Taylor Swift. You say something negative about any of them and people will take your head off. What draws people to that? Why can't you just like the music? I love the music. I love the artist. What drives people to become combative? to want to take you out, to want to cancel you.
What do you think that is? They're so invested, right? They become those extremists, right? So invested.
And even with political leaders.
Yes.
Because we're seeing that now. You know, when I was a kid, if you didn't like the president, you could say that. And it was like, okay. But now, if you say something about the president, or former president, or a candidate, or this, that, or the other, you could get canceled.
You can get canceled for anything now.
I think people are searching for meaning, and they're putting their identity in these celebrities like Beyonce. So Beyonce doesn't know them, doesn't know they exist, but they're putting their identity, their sense of meaning, their whatever their sense of meaning into the celebrity or the political candidate. And that becomes their identity in a sense. And that's very scary, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we talk about, hurt people, right? And, I always say that it's hurt people who haven't healed hurt people, because we all hurt in some way, shape, or form. I mean, none of us is perfect. None of us has not experienced some form of suffering, hardship. And so it's what we choose to do with it. And I do think that there are a lot of really hurt people who haven't healed. And, this becomes a quick way, right? Like, I don't have to do the work to feel good about myself. Yeah. I can just attach myself to Beyonce and feel good about myself because I'm attached to her and she's amazing. Yeah. So I think it's people skipping the process and trying to find that shortcut to filling whatever those holes are within themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's why they become so fanatical.
Yeah. Because if you haven't been given that process from your family of origin, and then when you get of age that you realize that, I wasn't given this, and you parent yourself to now, I need to figure out who I am. Mm-hmm. Who is my identity and what is it anchored in? Mm-hmm. Then, like you said, it's so easy to outsource that to someone else. And why not? Someone who's telling me they can give me love. Someone who is telling me that I have the ticket to eternal life. Someone who is Beyonce or Taylor Swift or Trump, that is appealing to something in me that makes me feel like I'm not as bad as as I feel like I am. I believe that I am. I feel like I'm worthless, but they make me feel like maybe I'm not.
Mm-hmm. And we're embedded into their relationship. So look at Will and Jada, right? They essentially lied for multiple years saying we're married, we're happy, because essentially they felt like the public needed that, right? We can't be our authentic selves. We can't say exactly what's going on in our household because the public is going to fall apart if they find out about our true selves. And then look what happened, right? As soon as Jada wrote her
even though they did already tell us, but we didn't pay attention. It has to be specifically spelled out.
The same thing with Rihanna, right? When she had her baby, she's with ASAP. Like, literally, we consume them. If Jay-Z and Beyonce break up, people will fall apart. Okay,
they need to go ahead and do a Will and Jada. They can't break up.
Yeah, celebrity worship.
Go on ahead and stay together on appearances and do what you're gonna do.
Listen, y'all better find a way to work it out. Okay.
Well, I mean, it's a dangerous way of coping, because it's like, even if I don't have it, I need to believe that these people that I put on this pedestal, they've got it. And then it reflects that, well, then it must be something wrong with me that I don't have it because they're so great and I'm not. And then when it falls apart, it's like, oh, wait. And then
if they can't make it work, I can't either.
Yeah. Because they have all the money, they're beautiful, they're sexy, they're this, then, but like you said, they want to skip the work. But the problem is they don't even know what the work is.
I have no clue.
Right.
No clue.
Right. And they don't know these celebrities, because how devastating would it be if for some celebrity, I'm not saying that the celebrities that you all mentioned are doing this, but what if some celebrity created drama in their household or created arguments with their kids or whatever else to get everyone just in a tizzy so that they could sell an album or sell a book or sell something? Mm-hmm. And it was all a skit. Yeah. It was all for pretend.
They do that.
I mean, I was about to say they doing that now.
Right. And we're putting our identities and we're putting our emotions, all of that needs to go into other things that serve us. We're putting that into celebrities that could be playing us.
Yep. Or even we can take it to Michelle and Barack. When she talked about that she spent like 10 years not liking her husband, everybody's like, oh my, they couldn't handle it. And she's just like, yeah, it's not that, it's not that was okay, but that's what it was. And we got over, this is how we got through it.
Yeah.
And people don't like that.
She was real.
We really want to believe that these people are coming already made, already ready, already healed, because they got money, they got these things. And it just like, there's no destination in healing. Like, we don't just like, okay, and I made it. It doesn't work that way.
Right. Yeah.
It keeps going. Let me read some of these comments. She said that the people, they're hanging on to potential that they rarely show. So that, that potential. She also said she thinks that people worship someone or something in that extreme manner because it fulfills the religious requirement. That's an interesting point. So how many people do you have that may not be active in the church, right? Who may not be sure about their relationship with God, even if they believe in God or not, who are spiritual but not religious, or, whatever it is. And so now I'm going to worship this person, and that takes the place of God. That's a very interesting point. What do y'all think about that?
A lot of church hurt, right? Like, because a lot of us have been church hurt or experienced trauma within the church. Absolutely. So then you want to stray away. Yeah. Right? Like, don't want anything to do with God, don't want anything to do with the church. And you are looking for that other sense of belonging. And that belonging can definitely come from music. Nicki Minaj, Cardi B, Beyonce, Taylor Swift. That's my people, right? Rihanna, like, they got it going on. They make me feel loved. They make me feel special and supported. Now, I personally believe that everybody should just sign up with one of you for counseling, right? Just get some therapy, get some counseling, let's get you to whole and healing. But most people are looking for that therapy, that love, that support in all these places, even substances, right? Substance abuse, sexual addiction, all types of things. That's why it's not hard for them to get caught up in that cult following, following that cult leader. Because as soon as you find somebody charismatic that you connect with, that makes you feel safe, that makes you feel whole, why wouldn't you join that group or organization or follow that person on social media?
And what's so interesting? I'm sorry. What's so interesting about that is, particularly when you find yourself in a cult, right? Cult situation, is that you're skipping the work, and like you don't even necessarily know what the work is, right? But you're skipping the work. You're trying to get to something easy, and that role ends up being way harder than it would have been for you to do your own internal healing. And so then you would be able to say, you know what, something about this really ain't right. You know what? Maybe I don't want to do this.
Let me walk away.
But that, right, you can walk away and you can be okay. But that's exactly what happens, is that people are looking for that escape. They are looking for that escape. They want the Disney movie. They want people to tell them that everything that they want, no matter how far-fetched it is real, and they can absolutely have it. And all you got to do is follow what I'm telling you. Then you can have your way, when what they want is not humanly possible.
Yeah. I think it's because even for those that's not church, oriented, didn't grow up in church, we live in a society that's individualistic, but we are made for connection. And we want to feel like we're a part of something bigger.
Yes.
And so if white supremacy is saying, no, it's about you lift yourself up, but that's not real. We all need somebody. Yeah. So then, and more than one somebody. So you become extremely vulnerable, because if it's not them, it's somebody else. And as long as they're giving you a message, it's like, oh, that's what I've been missing. Yeah. And like you said, it's like, it feels wrong in the beginning, but if they have people there, it's like, oh, well, they look like they're okay. They look like they're happy. So maybe I'm the one that's wrong.
Yep.
I'm getting it wrong. I'm seeing it wrong.
And think about all that we lost during the pandemic with social distancing. Some people are still not very close with their, friends or families like they were before the pandemic. And having to connect with people virtually. Remember back when D Nice was doing the
Club quarantine?
Yes,
Club quarantine.
Club
We all
quarantine.
connected with him like
Yeah.
we knew him. I know I did. I'm looking like, oh, he's playing my
We
song.
were in his living room, right? Yes.
Right. And that
Listen,
kind of
that was a lifeline, okay? I was looking forward to those club quarantine moments.
It was wonderful. And I think that he was just wonderful for doing that because it was what we needed. But what happened was many of us were connecting with people virtually online, and sometimes connecting with people via podcasts or via YouTube or TikTok videos that we did not know. And, just searching for that belonging and that connectedness. And then that can veer into, okay, well, I'm your favorite influencer. I'm going to start this group, this secret group. Pay me, or whatever else. And I think that's how we can have a slippery slope that can go from a following, like enjoying someone on social media, to being in a cult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And and let me say, right, like as a coach and as a healer, that is not all bad. So please don't think that, you following somebody, you really enjoy what they're doing and you join their group or their course or whatever. That is not a cult. That's not what we're talking about. But I do think it is important, right, that you do look at like what we're talking about. What are some of the similarities, right? What are some of the differences? What is that slippery slope? Have you ever felt uncomfortable, right? Have you ever felt pushed to do something that maybe you didn't want to do? What did you do about it? What was the end result? How was that handled, right? And look at some of these things, because it is really kind of like that fine line. Like when you cross this point, you're kind of at the point of no return. And now how do you get out? I was watching, there's so many documentaries out. I was watching the Hare Krishna. You all aware of the Hare Krishnas? I remember when I was in India, and I remember certain places, and you see them, with the pamphlets and all of that. And there was a documentary, I think it's on Max too, or it's on something, talking about the Hare Krishnas and what happened when the actual leader from India, like when he was dying, there were these different fractions that were kind of taking over. And, I don't know if they had a set way, like this is a Hare Krishna and what they were supposed to do. But there was one fraction in Virginia. It was isolated by location, by where it was in Virginia, and it became a cult. And it was one guy who was totally doing everything against what the movement was about. So he was saying, obviously, he was a Hare Krishna, right? And they were following him because of that. But he was doing everything opposite. He was doing what he wanted to do. I mean, it was rampant abuse of the women, of the children, the horrible living conditions. And it was so interesting watching one of the women who became one of the wives, was one of the other guys that was sort of in leadership. He was the one in charge of bringing in donations. So they were bringing in millions of dollars of donations because they would go out on the street and essentially beg and ask for money. Millions of dollars they were bringing in, and they weren't getting any of this money. It was all going to the leader. But there was one woman who said, they were like, just come. Just come join us. And, you can stay for a month or whatever. And, if you don't want to stay after that, you can leave. Or I think it was a month or 6 months. And she said she never left. She was there for years. She ended up having children with the man, and she eventually left because the abuse was so bad and she had to leave her children there to escape. But just come, and so she felt like there would be a way out, right? Like if she wanted it, but then it became, well, no, you can't leave. You have to now stay. There's nowhere that you can go. And so there's that line, there's that fine line, and like, what does that look like, right? Because what I don't want is people like, oh, well, I do like this person, and I want to listen to their music, and I want to do this, and what's the difference between that and something that is actually a cult that you just want to stay away from?
The example that you gave reminded me of, and I don't want to say any names, but there was a group. It was like a femininity training, and the leader of the leader of this group. I want to be very vague about this, but she actually had residence abroad. And she trained women, Black women, to go abroad to find a husband. On the surface, it sounded like, wow, okay, men, like passport ladies, okay, because you have passport brothers, right? Like, okay. But it turned into something else, something that was a bit more toxic. But I don't think anything is wrong with listening to an influencer who talks about femininity and talks about how to find a husband and how to improve your dating skills. But it's having that intuition and knowing that, wait a minute, this might be a cult.
Yeah, this might be going left. And because even if it's not a cult, it might not be a cult by the definition, but there might be some cultish behavior. Yeah. Right. And which is still, I'm trying to stay away from that too.
Because if you can't have opposing beliefs, if they are not empowering you to be your own guru and to learn how to trust yourself and to know that, like you said, if your clients are coming to you and you don't have to get with it. If it's healthy and they're happy and it's consensual and it's not illegal. But if they're telling you it's their way or no way, and they're likely not going to say it like that, they're going to denigrate you and manipulate you and do all these things to break you down after they built you up, though. Yeah. They're gonna build you up. They're gonna sell you all these dreams, and then when they got you, again, it's very similar to abusive domestic violence situations. Like it didn't start that way. It starts with emotional manipulation, mental manipulation, spiritual manipulation, isolation, and it's very, very slow and very, very little. And then one day you wake up and you're like, how did I get here? Such was I. When I realized I was 300 pounds and wasn't talking to my friends and wasn't looking at myself in the mirror. And I was like, what happened? How did I get here?
But what got you to that point? I think that's important too, is just being responsible as far as helping people. If you find yourself in a cult, how do you get out? What steps do you take to safely get out? Because we know the manipulation. They're taking all your money. You're broke. You don't have any money in the bank. You're doing all the work, and you got $1 million cult leader, multi-million-dollar cult leader. They're abusing children and women, multiple wives. If you find yourself in that situation where you're like, wait, I'm isolated from my family and friends, this person's manipulating me, definitely a charismatic leader, I love them so much, but something's not right. What should a person do in order to safely escape or remove themselves from that situation?
Well, for me, one, that's not something you broadcast. You don't tell them what you're doing, because a lot of times you can trying to convince them, trying to threaten them, like that's going to backfire, and they're just going to love bomb you and get you back in. And so once you realize that, and you need to realize that you can't change them. That was the big thing. From once I knew something was wrong, and I started asking questions, and it was maybe a few months later until I realized that I was in an abusive relationship. It was years later until I left my church and I realized, like, oh, this is spiritually abusive. And I had to and once I got there, I had to come to the place where they might change, but I am not going to change them. and me staying is not going to change them. I have to keep myself safe. And so at that point, it was, okay, what is it that I want?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I do that? How do I get in and begin making steps without divulging those steps to that person, be as safely as possible, especially in situations where your physical, even your emotional wellness is at risk. And I just, little by little, like, I didn't have it with my DV situation where I could just get up and leave. So I just started putting a little bit away. And then one day it's like, all right, I got to do it. And you don't look back, and you realize, one, you stop thinking that everyone is going to turn their back on you, because that's what they told you.
Yes.
That's how they isolated you. Oh, they don't really love you. They don't care about you. You know, look, they're not even checking on you. They're not even doing this. They're not even doing that. And I started to reaching out to people and saying, hey, I need help. Can you come help me move? I just need you to do. And people showed up. And then my therapist at the time was like, how did you do it and not go back? I was like, because I had to realize that my life was on the line. And of course, as a mandated reporter, she's like, oh, but you didn't tell me he threatened you. I was like, it's not about, he never threatened me. He was smart enough for that. It was about my soul and the fact that my quality of life, if I went back, it was only going to get worse. And so you have to be honest about the bad. You can romanticize the good because you don't want to paint them as bad people. But being honest about the bad isn't painting them bad. It's just being honest. And you can't let the good outshine what has harmed you. That's where you have to focus on the actual harm. And anytime the memories come up and, oh, I miss them, even if you got to write it down and remind yourself, this man put his hands on me. This pastor did this. They covered up abuse. If you have to remind yourself to say no, and then affirm, I deserve better than that. I deserve to be safe. I deserve to be in community and relationship where I am safe and loved and not manipulated and abused and being told that they're the only one that will ever love me.
Yes, so true.
And
That's
repeat and do it again and do it again.
You're absolutely right, because you have to reprogram yourself because you've been programmed. And so now you have to reprogram. And so I like that. Yeah, write it down. Keep repeating it. Record yourself saying it, because you're absolutely right. Your mind is going to falter. You know, you're going to go back and forth. You're going to question yourself because that's what you've been programmed to do. And so now, you got to take your power back, because that's essentially what you're doing is you have given away your power. And so now you got to pick it back up and take it with you and say, no, this is mine. You don't get to have this. So I thank you for sharing that, because I know, we live in such a judgmental world now, and everybody has access to social media. So, you have people, saying whatever they feel, regardless of how it sounds or regardless of how it may help or hurt people. And so I think people have become very judgmental. They become very sarcastic, right? They become that could never happen to me. But I know there's a lot of people who are going to watch this who are in a situation, who have been in a situation, who are in a situation that could be. And so, I really hope that you all see this and recognize yourselves and know that we are not judging. I'm very clear that it can happen to anybody. And I'm very clear that it happens in different ways. It might not be a cult, but it could certainly be a cultish type situation that you still find yourself in that's not best suited for you, that you need to get out of. And so I think it's important to recognize that, like, it doesn't have to be so extreme for it to still to be toxic. You can have various degrees of it. And that is not what you want. So ladies, I appreciate you being here. This has been awesome. I appreciate all of the comments. Any final thoughts for our viewers and our listeners?
I just wanted to say that when you're thinking about, of course, this was about cults, but any cultish type organization or a friendship or family or anything that is toxic, it's so important to ask yourself if you are able to truly be who you are, if you are able to ask questions, if you are able to express yourself, of course, in a respectful way, if there's something that's bothering you, something that doesn't sit right with you. If you can't do those things, then it's time to reevaluate where you are. It's as simple as that to me. Can you be yourself, your authentic self?
Yeah. And I like the whole part of take your power back, right? You deserve to be in a safe environment, a non-toxic environment. No one should be hurting you where you feel like you have to get away or you feel like bad about yourself. So definitely dig deep, even if it takes baby steps for you to walk away or get out that situation. Do what's necessary for you. And then once you get to that point, or maybe even before you get to that point, it's okay to reach out for help and support. Don't be embarrassed. I think a lot of times people are embarrassed, right? Oh my gosh, how did I end up in this situation? I'm so alone. Nobody's going to understand my story. Don't be embarrassed. Call the anonymous hotlines, call for support, get a therapist, let them help you to develop whatever plan that you need in order to empower yourself to get out that situation so you can be safe, so that you can be in a positive, healthy situation, relationship, whatever it is. Just put you first and take your power back.
Yes. Yeah. And I would say that you are the foundation, which means that you have to pour into yourself, just like the flight attendants say, before you try to help somebody next to you to put the mask on, you got to put your own mask on first. So even if you don't know how to love yourself, start looking around you and see what's hurting you and harming you. Mm-hmm. And making sure that you are doing what is necessary to keep yourself safe and to be well. And having the discipline and the ability to make those choices will you can look around and say, well, who is trying to get me away from that? What is trying to get me away from that? That's a good sign that is at the very least a toxic situation that you need to get out of. Don't try to change them, change you and change your location.
Oh, hey now. Change you and your location. Okay. That part. Yes. I love this. And I think we need more of these conversations. It was really interesting when I was telling some of my people that I was going to have this conversation. They were like, ooh, cults. Like, why would you talk about that? Right. Like, I don't know if you should talk about that. I don't know if you want that mixed in with all your other stuff. And I'm like, this is my other stuff. Like, it's the same, for me. But I think it's dark and it's disturbing, and so it's not, we don't look at it as understanding. It's the yin and the yang of life, right? It's the balance. It's the good and the bad. We have all of this. And so there's good healing, right? There's that good energy. And then there's that dark energy too, because ultimately what it comes down to it is, these people who get caught up in it, they want healing, they want love, they want all of the basic things that everybody wants. But instead of the good aspect of it, they got the bad.
Yeah.
And we have to talk about these things to recognize that they exist. They are out there. And I think one of the reasons that people do get caught up is because rainbows and sprinkles and unicorns and sunshine, they're looking for all of the good. And they're not looking at there is bad out there too. And this don't feel right. And so I think that we have to be more honest, right? Fairy tales only exist on a Disney movie. They are not in real life. You are going to have hardships. You are going to have struggle. That doesn't mean you got to stay there, right? But these things are going to happen. So anybody trying to sell you a pipe dream, It is just that. It is a dream. If what they say is that if it sounds too good to be true, it is.
Yes.
And so I think that's a sign right there. Anybody who is selling you something that is too good to be true. This man comes that I just saw, and I'm gonna talk about all this stuff because streaming is like, that's what I do on my downtime. Y'all gotta watch this if you haven't seen it on Netflix. I can't remember the name of it. It's about a surgeon. It just came out. And I couldn't believe I watched it all yesterday. I was in shock.
I watched that too. That was strange. Yeah.
Girl. Not a cult, but again, like a cultish person.
Yeah.
And in that he was charismatic. He was an actual surgeon from Italy, I believe. He lived abroad. And, I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but essentially he was killing folks. I'm going to just call a spade a spade.
Oh, boy.
He was really taking them
multiple people
using
multiple
this
people.
experimental thing that he created, and really he was just killing folks. He did not know what the heck he was doing,
but he was able to convince people
he
would save their life, so they kept doing it over and over again.
They kept doing it. And even after their family members died, the family loved him and they kept in touch with him and just said, oh, well, this one wasn't successful, but he's really a good person. But I say all of that to say is that he was selling a dream. This thing was not possible. Right. It wasn't possible.
Right.
But he sold a dream. And they wanted to believe that what they wanted was possible.
And it never worked at all. Like there was not one time that his procedure worked.
Never.
People didn't care for that little glimpse of hope that he provided them.
Never.
But that kind of makes me think of, and this is going to take us to another place where we probably don't want to go there at this moment, but that makes me think of women and men too, who believe in certain medical procedures, and they believe that these things are going to, these procedures are going to change their bodies, change their lives, and change their circumstances. Certain medical, certain plastic surgery medical procedures, to be exact.
Yep. And again, and that's that's a whole.
That starts from the inside, right? Like
that's a whole.
You can be skinny, 6-pack, have the big old booty,
right?
Booty, but it still starts from the inside, right? Because if you're not healed from the inside, it don't matter what you look like on the outside.
Right.
You're still the same person.
It does not. It does not. And again, skipping the work. Let me just skip the process and go to the end result, right? That's what that is. And so anytime you're really being sold, this pipe dream, something that feels too good to be true, any times where it feels like, you know what, you can kind of skip past what you would really need to do, that ding, 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 something is not right.
Yeah.
Something is not right. And the second thing that I would say, I'm agreeing with all of you, is absolutely get help. I've seen far too many people suffer in silence and suffer far too long because they didn't ask for help, because they were embarrassed, because they had this particular image, right? And this is how people saw them, and they could not break that particular image. They did not want to say that that's not really what was going on, that was not really their authentic self. And so a lot of people they're ashamed, and that shame traps them. So absolutely get help. You don't have to ask everybody for help. There are some people who are not a safe space. Don't talk to them. But who is a safe space. Talk to those people. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because the only way you're going to get out of a situation like that is to ask for help. You cannot do it alone.
That's so true.
So on that note, let everybody know where to find you, where you at, where you hang out on social media.
Yes. So I can be found on TikTok and on Instagram. So on TikTok, my handle is The Feisty Therapist. On Instagram, it is thefeisty.therapist. But if you want to check out my therapy and what I do in terms of being a therapist, check out synergywellnesstherapy.com.
I like that. The Feisty Therapist. Okay.
Look, she coming for that number one spot. And don't you train therapists as well?
No, I don't. But I'm glad that you said that, because that's something that I probably will do in the future. That's something that I need to do. So that you just put that out there for me.
Yes,
So
let's
I'll be
raise up this
confirmation.
next generation, right? Like
It's time.
interns, fellowships,
Yeah. Actually,
externships.
I did a couple years ago. I had an intern that I was able to help. So to go from her LG to being a licensed therapist. So yes.
Yes, let's raise this next generation because we need it, right? Post COVID, I think we need more therapists, and we need more therapists that look like us.
Yes, we do. We do.
So thank you for being in that space. And for me, I try to keep it simple. I am Ebony A. Gray across all social media channels. So I'm Ebony Gray on Facebook, but I'm Ebony A. Gray on TikTok, on Instagram, Twitter. You can find me. I'll drop my LinkedIn in the chat. Definitely if you want to connect with me professionally, but please connect with me, talk with me, engage with me. And the two things I do, I help to empower women to get jobs, and I also empower business women to get those government contracts. So please connect with me if you would like to.
I'm gonna be following you.
Come on and get these contracts, because I want to empower us, because that's
get that money
coming from the DV and SA world. A lot of times that's the number one thing, right? You need a job, or you need to be an entrepreneur so you can empower yourself to get out that situation. So that's where it started. I want to empower us so we don't have to be in these abusive, toxic, unsafe situations.
Absolutely.
Love it.
You can follow me on TikTok and Instagram. It's I am Luz Selenium. And then my website, if you like to connect with me, work with me, I have a monthly healer circle that happens on the fourth Mondays of the month. And so my website is just luzselenia.com.
Beautiful. Thank you, ladies. And I am Avalaura, your life coach and intuitive consultant. I am Googleicious, all things Avalaura, Avalaura. I am the only one. So you can find me everywhere. So just, pick your poison, wherever, or you can go to my website, avalaura.com, and find all of my social media and where I'm at and what I'm doing there. Obviously, you all know this started from Facebook. I'm very active on Facebook, but I am committing to doing more videos. So make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I will be popping up all over YouTube and TikTok in 2024. You heard it here first. Okay, so I said it, so I'm sticking to it. All right. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for commenting. Thank you all. All these comments, like I said, we will definitely keep posted. So if you check the replay, say hey to us. Let us know that you saw the replay. Feel free to connect to all of these amazing women doing amazing healing work in our own right. Even Ebony, that is healing work, right? Because helping us get that money is necessary for us to invest in ourselves and to take care of ourselves and do what we need to do for our own healing. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you for taking your time out to be with us tonight. And until next time, wishing you peace, love, and bountiful blessings. Create an amazing day from wherever you are. And I'll see you all soon. Bye.
Bye.